During the night shift, I turned down a request to help my foster sister's patient with an 4. I watched a 7-year-old boy die from an allergic reaction due to the wrong medication. In my past life, just after finishing the 4, the irate family rushed into the nurse's station and beat me up. But it was just glucose. There shouldn't have been any issue. As I slipped into a haze, someone called the cops. I thought my saviors had arrived. Didn't expect my cop brother to pin me to the ground. My medical examiner X brought out an autopsy report and accused me. I couldn't defend myself and ended up getting beaten to death by the furious family. Until the end, I couldn't understand why my loving brother and X would do this to me. When I opened my eyes, I was back that night again. During the night shift, I declined to help with the foster sister's patient's 4. Watched the 7-year-old boy die from an allergy. In my past life, I just finished the 4 and the family launched an attack on me at the nurse's station. You gave my grandson the wrong 4 and killed him. Yet it was glucose. Nothing should have gone wrong. Someone called the police when I was fading out, and I thought my help arrived. My brother slammed me on the ground. Your fingerprints are on the 4 bottle. You're a murderer. My ex, the medical examiner, used the autopsy report to testify against me. The time of death was around 5, right when you were doing the 4. I couldn't defend myself and was beaten to death. I had no clue why my loving brother and ex did this to me, even until the end. Opening my eyes, I found myself back that night again. Hey, Nora, Mindy's not feeling great. You on the night shift anyway? Lend her a hand. My brother's warm voice on the phone made me shiver. I looked at the clock. It was 2 a.m. Staring at the bustling nurse's station for a while, I realized I was reborn. Mindy gave me an impatient shove when she saw me dazing off. If you agree, I'm heading out right now. Stomach's killing me, need some rest at home. Remember to help with the 4 for bed 6 at 5. Alright. Last life, I agreed to helping Mindy for my brother's sake. Something felt off the moment I approached the patient. The little boy was completely covered by the sheets, only his pale face visible under the moonlight. Before I could check, Mindy called. Done with the 4. I was confused. The kid is sleeping way too deeply. Something feels off. I'll check first. Mindy blew up on the line. That boy's been noisy all day long. Don't you dare wake him. I felt uneasy still. Where are his parents? Why is no one watching him? It's none of your business. Just replace the 4 bottle. It's not like you need to stick him again. Why are you so slow? Gonna wake him up, huh? The bottle was just glucose for energy, so I felt relieved. This little oversight carried a heavy burden later. The next day, I was about to switch shifts when the boy's family barged in and beat me. I learned he died of an allergic shock, and I was the last to administer the 4. But how could he have a reaction to glucose? Mindy shifted all the blame on me. Nora did the 4. I had nothing to do with it. I thought my brother and ex would help find the truth, but even my cop brother pinned it on me. The fingerprints on the 4 bottle are Nora's. She's surely responsible. Rocky, my ex, threw the report at me. Time of death was right after your 4. What do you have to say? I couldn't argue and ended up beaten to death outside the police station, with my brother and ex watching coldly. Till the end, I couldn't understand why they did this. My body still ached with lingering pain. Living again, no way I'm letting this tragedy repeat. My brother's voice cut through my thoughts anxiously. Nora, you gonna help or not? I need to pick Mindy. This time, I noticed how pressed he was in asking and then pinning the crime on me, like he was scared Mindy would get involved. Is my brother mixed up in this too? Thinking that sent a chill through me. I glanced at Mindy. She was antsy, stealing looks at room 302. Like it held some secret. I cleared my throat, feigning calmness. Can't do it. Just came back tired from the ER and got other patients to see. Mindy was shocked by my refusal, her face flushed. Seriously, it's just an 4. You can't help with that. Even my brother scolded over the phone. Nora, you can't even help with a little thing. I thought you cared. I hung up and went on with my work, ignoring them. Mindy rolled her eyes, mumbling to herself. Useless, can't count on you. Last time I helped her at once. She threw me under the bus anyway. Let someone else do that favor. Mindy asked around at the nurse's station. No one wanted to help since she's always obnoxious and dumps her shifts. So she, with her tummy now suddenly alright, cursed and headed to the restroom. Why the rush for someone else to cover her? Was Eddie in trouble already? To test my theory, after Mindy left, I put on gloves and went to room 302. Eddie's face was ghostly pale under the moon. Lifting the covers to check his temperature left me frozen in shock. The body was already cold, even showing signs of rigor mortis. It must have been dead for at least an hour. At 1 o'clock, Mindy was supposed to administer the 4. Did she realize she gave the wrong 4 and killed someone? So she panicked and wanted someone else to take the blame. The thought sent chills down my spine, making me feel a wave of dread. My first instinct was to report to the hospital immediately, but just as I was about to take a step, I dismissed the idea. I was in a room where I had no reason to be. Given Mindy's knack for shifting blame, would she pin it on me? Not just possible, inevitable. Once I was sure no one noticed, I quickly left the room. I sat at the nurse's station for a long time until I calmed down. Then I realized something crucial. If the patient died around 1 o'clock, why did Rocky's autopsy report list the time of death as between 5 and 6? Rocky is hailed as a genius in forensics. He could estimate the time of death within an hour and never made mistakes. How could such a seasoned forensic pathologist make such a blunder? I felt a sharp pain in the back of my head, struggling to figure it out. Rocky and I had our first love. For years, he protected me like a knight. Why would he put me in danger now? Throughout the night, I busied myself, deliberately ignoring Mindy. She paced back and forth at the nurse's station, looking restless. As the clock neared 5, she sat with a treatment tray in her hand, showing no intention of administering the 4. Once everyone else was busy with their tasks, leaving just the 2 of us at the nurse's station, she gave me a glance and left for room 302 without a word. Predicting when the relatives would make a scene, I got up to find a hiding spot. Soon, cries of anguish echoed from room 302, just like in a past life. My dear grandson, please wake up. Don't scare grandma. Son, open your eyes and look at mom and dad. What's wrong? Oh Eddie, the doctor said you'd be discharged in a few days. How could this happen suddenly? How will your mom and dad go on? Amidst all the chaos, the relatives stormed into the nurse's station. Eddie's dad, with a tensed voice, demanded to know who the attending nurse was and who administered the 4. Mindy shrank back in a corner, too afraid to fess up, but her eyes darted around looking for me. Other nurses pointed at Mindy with a frightened expression. Mindy was responsible for bed 6. Before Mindy could speak, Eddie's dad punched her in the eye. Just as Mindy steadied herself, Eddie's mom kicked her in the stomach. Caught in a pincer attack, Mindy lay on the ground, wailing, pinned down by Eddie's grandma yanking her hair. You killed my precious grandson. I never liked you, you murderer. I'll have you pay with your life. When they saw me approaching, a blood-faced Mindy pointed at me, screaming, I'm on duty, but Nora gave the 4. She must have given the wrong meds. In a previous life, just as I was about to go off shift after a long night's work, the relatives cornered me at the nurse's station. When questioned by the relatives, Mindy immediately implicated me. Nora was on duty that night, and she administered the drip. It has nothing to do with me. I couldn't even explain before they beat me black and blue. Eddie was only 6, the only child in the family. His dad looked tough, his mom was a lawyer, and his grandma was notoriously unreasonable. At 25, I couldn't handle it at all, like fish waiting to be gutted. This time around, Mindy wouldn't get away with her tricks. When the relatives turned to glare at me, I raised my hand to clarify. Don't try to pin this on me. I didn't help her with the 4 last night. Everyone can vouch for me. The other nurses quickly backed me up. Though Mindy did ask Nora for help last night, Nora refused. Mindy administered the 4 herself. When she asked me again later, I agreed. It was around 5 when you all weren't present. Mindy's face was bloody and her voice shrill, looking ferocious. This involves a person's life. Who dares to confirm that it was me who administered the drip? I bet Nora made a mistake with the 4 and wants to blame it all on me. When it came to something involving a life, everyone hesitated to speak up. The looks from the relatives grew angrier on me, so I spoke up to clear things. I wasn't there at all. Check the surveillance if you don't believe me. The hallway cameras are broken. You're just trying to dodge responsibility. A subtle smile tugged at Mindy's lips, like she had planned the whole thing. No wonder, she knew the hallway surveillance was down, so she made sure to go to the room when no nurses were around. Eddie's dad kicked over the computer at the nurse's station, pounding on the desk. Whoever did it will pay with their life. Someone in the crowd shouted, the cops are here. My heart sank. I instantly recognized my brother among the crowd. He finally came. He looked quite surprised seeing Mindy on the ground. Why is she the one who got beaten? Crying, Mindy covered her wound. Brother, it really wasn't me who gave the 4. You have to stand up for me. No, nobody called the police on such short notice. How could my brother have arrived so fast like he knew someone would die here? Under my puzzled gaze, my brother stepped forward and slapped me hard. He hit me so hard I could hear ringing in my ears. Nora, I'm so disappointed in you. You made a mistake. Own up to it. His voice sounded strange, like he was a different person. Then he turned to face the family, wearing a gentle expression. I apologize on behalf of Nora. Please, spare her as she's still young. I'll personally see to it she's brought to justice and faces the law. My own brother, without even figuring out the truth, couldn't wait to declare me guilty in front of everyone. At this moment, I'm not just heartbroken, I'm dead inside. I was holding my swollen red cheek, unable to stop the tears. I didn't do the four, it was Mindy. There aren't any of my fingerprints on the vial. You can check if you don't believe me. Mindy looked shocked and glanced at me, all pitiful. I even took a beating for you, and now you're still going to accuse me. Finally, it was Eddie's mom who spoke up. Fine, let's let the police investigate. I want to find out who really killed my son and avenge him. Everyone was anxiously waiting for the fingerprint analysis results during this time. I wasn't worried because I hadn't touched the vial, so there was no way my fingerprints would be on it. But when the results came out, I was hit in the face again. Rocky was at the police station too, just watching the drama unfold without saying a word. My brother held the results and scanned the room, finally stopping at me. The fingerprints on the right-hand side of the vial belonged to Nora. The evidence is indisputable. As soon as he said that, everyone's eyes were on me. Rocky had a gloomy look, almost like he was heartbroken. No way. There shouldn't be any of my fingerprints on the vial unless my brother faked them using his position. Living in the same house, getting my fingerprints would be ridiculously easy for him. But right now, I had no evidence to challenge him. He prides himself on being this righteous cop, with a strong sense of justice. In the past, I stupidly thought I'd done something wrong, which made him disappointed in me. No matter how badly he treated me, I never blamed him. Turns out, it was all a trap set by him and Mindy right from the start, just waiting for me to fall into it. The memories of his kindness seem so vivid, but when it was a choice between me and Mindy, I was always the one to be sacrificed. A brother like that, forget it. Just as Eddie's parents were about to explode, I quickly raised a question. Did you guys not notice, when you found him, Eddie already had livor mortis? That doesn't happen right after someone dies. Backtrack the time livor mortis sets in, and it shows he was dead by 2 p.m. At that time, I was busy helping in the ER, and the doctors in the operating room can vouch for me. If I could prove Eddie died around 2 p.m., this whole thing would have nothing to do with me. If you really want to find the real killer, maybe consider an autopsy. I imagine Eddie would rest in peace knowing the truth was out. Eddie's parents looked anguished, silent for a moment before they nodded. We agreed to the autopsy. Mindy acted like she was prepared, exchanging a glance with Rocky. Let Rocky, the esteemed coroner from the station, handle the autopsy. He will surely find the real culprit. Eddie's mom's eyes lit up, looking a lot more at ease. He's the forensic genius, right? Fine. I trust him with the autopsy. We'll finally find who really killed my poor son. In the past, I also looked forward to finding the truth, only to be condemned by Rocky's autopsy report. I've seen this trick before, but I'm not the same person anymore. Seeing my hesitation, Mindy sneered. Nora, are you having second thoughts about the autopsy? What are you so afraid of? I looked at the pre-written text on my phone and hit send. I lifted my head to meet Rocky's eyes, once filled with stars and reflections of me, and asked him seriously. Rocky, with your skills, you'll find the truth and clear my name, right? Rocky adjusted his glasses, his eyes looking down at me with a blend of sincerity and slight arrogance. I won't wrong an innocent person, nor will I let a guilty one go free. All right, this was his last chance from me. If he missed it again, he'd be dooming himself. Fine. I agreed to let Rocky handle the autopsy. Waiting for the autopsy result, my brother came to me, all concerned. Nora, listen to your brother. Confess before the autopsy results come out. It'll mean a lighter sentence. Medical malpractice resulting in death only gets a max of 3 years. Even if you go in, I can pull strings to take care of you. You'll still be the beloved darling when you come back home. Mindy nodded enthusiastically, looking hopeful. The last time, when I first faced a case involving a death, I panicked. My brother's words easily swayed me. Back then, I was foolishly touched, thinking he truly cared for me. But I didn't even get to a verdict, getting beaten to death by the victim's family at the police station doors. Just trying to make me take the fall for Mindy, huh? Dream on. I glanced at Mindy, then voiced it out. Mindy, hear that? You still have time to confess. My brother shot up from his chair. What's your attitude? I told you to confess, not to make Mindy take the blame for you. I opened my hands, pursing my lips. Once the autopsy results are out, everything will be clear. Mindy's chest heaved with fury. Fine, waste your brother's good intentions and see if you'll regret it. This regret Let's see who really ends up with it. 2 days later, everyone gathered at the police station again. Rocky seriously laid out the autopsy report, pointing at me. Time of death was between 5 to 6 p.m. due to an allergic reaction to penicillin. So it was Nora's mistake with the medication that led to allergic shock and death. The exact same words from my past life hit me like a meteor, heavy on my heart. Even though I was prepared, it still hurt to breathe. For Mindy, my brother and first love would forsake their ethics, blaming me for causing a death. Before I was 8, I was the treasured one between my brother and Rocky. The best food was for me. They were always guarding me, fearing I might get bullied. But ever since Mindy came along, everything changed. I became the invisible one, the forgotten child. In that case, no more brother or first love for me. I was temporarily held in custody, waiting for further investigation into the case. But I'm not worried at all. After a few quiet days, Eddie's family stormed the police station, demanding that I pay up, either with money or my life. In my last life, when a lot of the station staff were out on duty, Mindy suggested I apologize in person to Eddie's family. I ended up beaten to death by the furious family right outside the police station, all under my brother and Rocky's watchful eyes. This time, Mindy was trying the same trick. With the family causing a ruckus like this, why not have Nora apologize in person to calm things down? If not, your police station will end up embarrassed. Anyone with eyes could see that she wanted the family to beat me to death, leaving no witnesses. My brother and Rocky both agreed to the idea. Ignoring my protests, they dragged me to the police station entrance. A bunch of burly men, red-faced and furious, rushed at me the moment they saw me. Just as things were about to go south, someone in the crowd suddenly shouted, "Nora didn't kill Eddie." Everyone turned towards the voice. There was Lawyer Jack, dressed sharply in a suit, holding up an autopsy report. I was commissioned by MS Nora to request a second autopsy, and here's the truth. In an instant, my brother and Rocky's faces changed. I had prepared for this, planning ahead before the fingerprints were analyzed. After consulting a professional lawyer, I found a way to bypass Rocky and get a more authoritative medical examiner for a second autopsy. In case my brother really betrayed me, this was my only hope for a comeback. As all eyes were on him, Jack slowly opened the report. The autopsy results show that the time of death was around 2 o'clock in the morning. I suspect that Rocky's report altered the time of death. Rocky, the named party, suddenly had his pupils dilate and began stammering. How dare you suspect me? With my years of forensic experience, I question the professionalism of your autopsy results. Really, Rocky? Are you really going to question this lead medical examiner's professionalism? Jack asked, his expression intriguing. Rocky scoffed, rolling his eyes in disdain. Who knows if you found some half-baked medical examiner? What's professional about that? When Jack turned to the page with the medical examiner's signature, I couldn't help but laugh. The medical examiner for the autopsy is the very mentor who taught you. Got anything else to say? The examiner, who educated him, now doubted by Rocky. His face turned red, like he'd been slapped. He lowered his head and stayed silent. Facing my intense glare, my brother reached out to shield Mindy behind him. It can't be Mindy. Absolutely not. Mindy's always been diligent and responsible. If anything, you're the one who's careless. There were many times she had to cover for your mistakes. I almost laughed out of anger. How could he say these things with such a straight face? Anytime Mindy made a colossal blunder, wasn't I the one fixing it? Afraid that my brother's words weren't enough, Rocky chimed in again. So, there's no way Mindy could have messed up the penicillin. It had to be Nora trying to frame Mindy. I crossed my arms, staring him down. And what about you, esteemed forensic expert? How noble does it make you to forge an autopsy report? Rocky opened and closed his mouth, growing increasingly agitated. That just means I made a mistake in my judgment. There are always margins of error. It doesn't prove I intentionally altered the results. You're slandering me. My brother suddenly seemed to recall something and eagerly pulled out his phone. After rummaging through it, he unearthed the fingerprint analysis photo. Right, Rocky reminded me. There are always errors, but the fingerprints on the medicine bottle are solid evidence. It proves no one besides you handled that bottle. Doesn't that prove you administered the medication? Can you really say you're blameless? He said, displaying the phone for all to see. Eddie's dad, already furious, rolled up his sleeves, his gaze menacing enough to strangle me. You little witch, what do you have to say? At that moment, I noticed something in the fingerprint photo. Wait a second. I held up my right hand, specifically turning my right index finger. Look at my right index finger. Before this incident, Mindy cut it, taking out a sizable chunk, so the fingerprint should be damaged. But this photo shows a perfect print. These must be fake. Caught off guard, My brother was visibly stunned and double-checked several times. Who knows if you intentionally did that later. The day Mindy cut me, everyone in the nurse's station saw, and my wound was so deep. It was the head of the hospital who dressed it. They can all vouch for me. Who would have thought Mindy's malicious cut would eventually become the best evidence of my innocence? Isn't this a twist of fate? With the evidence laid bare, my brother couldn't refute it and quickly distanced himself. The fingerprint on the bottle is indisputable, but whether it's real or fake, I don't know. I'm just discussing the matter. What a way to shift the blame, washing his hands of it. Luckily, Eddie's mom wasn't a fool and swiftly pinpointed the key issue. My son died at 2, and you altered the autopsy to show 6. Nora didn't touch the medicine bottle, and her finger was hurt, yet there's a complete fingerprint. So, my son was killed by that Mindy wench. She's the wretch, not only killing my son, but also playing us for fools. Beat her, make her pay for Eddie's life. The enraged family lunged at them, and my brother and his first love tried to intervene, only to end up being pounded by the family too. Listening to Mindy's piercing screams, I thought she might regret suggesting the apology meeting with the family. Isn't this poetic justice? But that wasn't enough. Eddie's mom took out a calculator and started adding up all the expenses, Eddie's upbringing costs, tutoring fees, and future care expenses, all of it. Mindy's got to fork over 8 million, no ifs, ands, or buts. You guys are gonna have to pay up, or we're not done here. Mindy's face looked like a swollen balloon, and she just laid there on the ground, miserable. I really didn't give the wrong 4. I triple-checked everything and cross-referenced 7 things before the transfusion. No way I made such a rookie mistake. My mind was racing. If it wasn't a slip-up, then are we talking premeditated murder? When she heard the word murder, Mindy panicked and shot back. Nora, don't accuse me of stuff I didn't do. Why are you so nervous? Did I say you murdered anyone? Her eyes were darting all over. What does any of this prove? Maybe you injected the patient with penicillin while I was out, setting me up, because you're jealous that my brother and Rocky back me up. She was babbling. With what I know about her, something was definitely off. If she did it on purpose, we're not just talking a medical error, that's death penalty territory. Thanks to some new evidence I brought forward, all previous evidence was overturned, and the police took it seriously, starting a new investigation. My brother and Rocky, suspected of neglect, were suspended and had to stay home, waiting for the outcome. It's been rough for all of us. Everyone's been giving me dirty looks like I'm some kind of villain. Hiding in my room couldn't stop the inevitable run-ins. The moment he saw me, my brother would explode, angrily blaming me. You had to blow this up, didn't you? Now I'm suspended. Happy? You just wanna ruin this family. Just admit it was all your fault, or I'm done calling you my sister. Rocky sent me a text, cutting ties with biting words. Nora, don't contact me ever again. Act like we never met. I was wrong about you. Our past memories might as well have been fed to dogs. Don't be a bother anymore. If I weren't mentally tough, they'd have broken me. They play the victim while trying to paint me as the villain, keeping a straight face while lying through their teeth, reversing blame, flipping the narrative. When I refused to play by their rules, they lost it and started slandering me. I wouldn't fall into their new traps by defending myself. Before they could block me, I blocked them first. I up and moved out, waiting for karma to catch up with them. As the investigation deepened, Mindy became the main suspect, under house arrest while they dug further. But I knew I couldn't relax until she confessed. As long as she didn't, I couldn't clear my name. If she found any chance, she'd strike back. I needed more evidence, so I returned to the hospital. Everything circled back to the penicillin that caused Eddie's allergic reaction. Mindy knew Eddie was allergic, yet she still infused it by mistake. Was that a coincidence? If it wasn't an accidental mix-up, there was only one reason Mindy did it on purpose. But why? Why target a 7-year-old kid? My thoughts hit a wall, interrupted by commotion outside the hospital entrance. Turned out that Eddie's family had been causing a ruckus, demanding compensation from the hospital. This heartless place killed my son, and no one's taking responsibility. It's your hospital's fault, and you've got to pay up. If no one's gonna pay, blood for blood, my son's death must be avenged. Look, everybody, this hospital gave my son the wrong 4 and killed him. You'd still trust them with your health. They are killing people. I couldn't help but shake my head. While I'm not against compensation, they don't seem all that upset, do they? Just cash focused. A colleague pointed out, did you see? Eddie's mom is expecting. Instantly, we all knew what was going on. A few co-workers couldn't resist gossiping and started venting. Mindy something, her. She was warned about how patient in bed 6 is tough. She should have been more careful. That's a life we're talking about. It's not her first mistake with Eddie, and she never learns. Like a dam breaking, my blocked thoughts flowed freely. Right, she already had issues with them. Mindy definitely had a motive. A week ago, she almost messed up and I caught it just in time. That patient was Eddie. Eddie's grandma praised me and then tore Mindy a new one, even filed a complaint. Mindy got a major demerit and lost her bonus. It was her fault, but she held a grudge, complaining to my brother and Rocky afterward. That brat is always causing problems, yanking people's oxygen, spilling water in sockets. And I get blamed. How dare his family complain about me? They should have injected the wrong thing and ended that little brat. Instead of stopping her, my brother chimed in. Totally, and it didn't even happen in the end. The hospital's just too harsh. Rocky glared at me with displeasure. Part of this is on Nora. She should have given a heads up quietly. Didn't have to make it such a thing to show off. I was shocked they'd think like that I lost it for the first time. A wrong 4 is a medical mistake. You can't have such a careless attitude. What if someone died? They're usually such sticklers, always lecturing me over small mistakes. But bending over backward for Mindy. Unreal. We argued to no end. I was outnumbered. Mindy smugly stuck her tongue out. Care about that brat so much, why not join him in dying someday? I never thought those words would come true. Is that the motive here? Intentional revenge? I quickly reached out to a friend at the hospital to help check Mindy's medication records. What he found was huge. Mindy had picked up penicillin that was meant for another patient the next day, but the medication record for that patient didn't have any penicillin listed. I was excited, but calmed myself down soon. Even though all the evidence pointed to Mindy intentionally poisoning Eddie, it was all just speculation. Mindy needed to admit she used the penicillin on Eddie, but no one would be stupid enough to confess to murder. By the time I got back to the nurse's station, Eddie's family had already left. I was a bit puzzled and asked my co-worker. They left already? Yeah, Mindy was here. She admitted she mixed up the meds causing the incident and offered compensation to keep the family quiet. They dropped the case, and that solved everything. Well, what else? It's all about the money in the end. Once Mindy offered to pay, Eddie's parents just started negotiating the price. Eddie's folks are really gutsy, asking for $8 million. Even selling Mindy wouldn't get that much. Mindy messed up. Tried to blame Nora, but when that didn't work, she caved. Really hard to say. Everyone kept chatting like it all blew over just like that. The matter was resolved, and the hospital restored my position, but I still felt uneasy. Mindy isn't someone to simply take a loss. Why agree to such a huge payout while changing meds for a patient? A co-worker called out to me. Nora, finish up and check the link I sent. It's bad news. My heart sank. I had a gut feeling this was serious trouble. Once I finished, I pulled out my phone. The link opened to a video with Mindy's familiar face. In front of the camera, she sat in her white nurse uniform, bowing sincerely before tears welled up. First, my deepest apologies to Eddie's family. I did mess up the medication. It's my fault. But there's something I've wanted to say for a long time, and I'm using the internet to speak up today. When Eddie's condition worsened, I was about to call for a doctor, but my sister Nora insisted it was a normal reaction, and even accused me of overreacting. As a nurse, I haven't been doing it as long as she has, and she's my sis, always bossing me around. I was too scared to fight back, just believed her, and regretted it my entire life. After it happened, she pushed all the blame on me, and I was the only one brave enough to face it and compensate the family. Now, Nora is still working at that hospital. How many more patients will suffer under her care? I'm coming forward, because I care about the patients' lives, even if it means no longer being a nurse. Her sincere words drew supportive comments. It's admirable she's taking responsibility, especially for a young girl. Some medical staff are so unprofessional and hurt others. Why is she still working? I really feel for this sister. My sis is the same, never admitting when she's wrong. The compensation should come from Nora, not just the sister. It's unfair. I've started a campaign against this Nora. Let's go after her. A lot of repetitive IPs in the comments screamed fake accounts, but the uninformed were clearly swayed. Even my video account was bombarded with hateful messages and comments. I was called in for a talk right after work. We've been flooded with complaints today. The hospital can't keep you. We hope you understand. I had always been diligent, won countless accolades, but now I felt utterly powerless and foolish. Not much of a fight. I packed up and left. At the hospital entrance, amongst a sea of nasty messages, one stood out. Nora, I have a secret to tell you. Clutching my belongings, a squad of big guys surrounded me outside my apartment building. Leading them was Eddie's dad. He gripped a baseball bat, looking hostile. Had you saved my son, he wouldn't have died. They said you'd handle the compensation. So it's your responsibility. If you can't pay today, don't blame us for taking it out on you. I stepped back in fear. Who says it's up to me to pay? We do. Turning back, my brother and Rocky flanked Mindy, confronting me with icy stares. Mindy's already taken the heat for you. Isn't 8 million your debt, Nora? Or do you plan to escape responsibility? Aren't you as a nurse liable too? I chuckled. I should ask you the same. As people, aren't you responsible too? If you love Mindy so much, why not die for her or pay her debt? This shut them both up instantly. My brother breathed heavily, then told Eddie's dad, if she won't admit her fault, go ahead and beat her. Debts must be paid, lives for lives, and as family, we won't hold charges. The bat inches from my head. I raised my phone. Your son was murdered by Mindy, not by accident. Everyone froze. Eddie's dad trembled, disbelief on his face. What did you say? If you're lying, I'll kill you. My brother quickly cut me off. Nora, don't talk nonsense. I just ignored him and started speaking slowly. Someone sent me a video as evidence. If you don't believe me, see for yourself. I hit play. In the dim staircase, Mindy was sneakily making a phone call. She looked anxious, pacing around, her voice tinged with a sob. What do? I just wanted to teach Eddie that brat a lesson. So I gave him some penicillin he's allergic to. I just wanted him to suffer a bit. Didn't think his reaction would be so severe and he'd die. The night was so quiet. My brother's voice was easily recognizable. On the other end, he carefully instructed Mindy. Around 5, you still need to do another infusion, so get Nora to cover for you.
Pretend you have a stomachache and go home. When they find out he's dead, push everything onto Nora. Don't worry, with me around, you'll be safe. My already numb heart still throbbed hearing these words. She then called Rocky. What if Eddie's family demands an autopsy? Won't the time of death get exposed? Rocky sounded confident. I'll make sure the time of death appears to be after 5. No one will suspect you then. The video was sent to me by a private message. The sender said his son was hospitalized and, to save money, slept in the staircase at night. He overheard Mindy on the phone, got curious, and recorded it. I sincerely thanked him for the video evidence. Turns out he was even more sincere than me. Nurse Nora, I should thank you. We were out of options when my son couldn't afford his hospital fees, and that Mindy nurse mocked us for being country folk, saying we shouldn't be there if we couldn't pay. You gave us the money for the fees and rallied others to donate. Otherwise, we would have gone back to our small town waiting to die. My son recovered and got discharged. Don't blame me for reaching out so late. If I hadn't seen Mindy's slander online, I wouldn't have known. Funny enough, if she hadn't taunted us, she wouldn't have left such an impression, and I wouldn't have filmed the video. Good and bad deeds always have their outcomes. Turns out my kindness unknowingly helped me. And Mindy, she sowed what she reaped, dragging herself into the abyss. After the video, Eddie's father already had clenched fists, glaring at Mindy with bloodshot eyes. My son, my poor son, you murdered him. He was only 7, just a child. Why did you do this to him? I don't want money anymore. I want your life. At that moment, Eddie's dad was like an enraged lion. My brother Sam stood in front of Mindy, previously swearing he'd never hold me responsible, now using his cop status for intimidation. Don't lose it, or you'll all get arrested. As soon as he said that, a baseball bat connected with his face, sending teeth mixed with blood flying. That swing must have hit just right. Sam fell and started convulsing. Rocky, seeing this, didn't dare to intervene. But before he could say, he's innocent, he got taken down and kicked. A few kicks in, his glasses shattered, shards lodged deep in his eye socket. Rocky's eyeball ruptured, bleeding profusely. Mindy tried to bolt but didn't get far before being kicked to the ground. A group of guys surrounded her, each landing a punch, like they were pounding a bat of sand. Her hair and teeth scattered on the ground, her body battered all over. Police cars took Eddie's family away, and ambulances took Mindy and the others. They all stayed in the ICU for over a month. Compared to my last life dying from a beating, they got off easy. Once they recovered, Rocky became one-eyed, Sam became paralyzed. But that's not the end. The real nightmare was just beginning. As soon as they left the hospital, they were taken into police cars. With so much evidence, the special investigation team quickly reached a verdict. Mindy intentionally caused death, with her attitude and refusal to change, facing almost guaranteed death penalty. Sam and Rocky were charged with abetting a criminal, abusing their power for personal gain, and covering up evidence. They got expelled from the party and faced criminal charges. They ended up with nothing and had to serve time. I went to see them one last time. Do you regret it? I asked. Mindy stayed silent. Sam lowered his head, his shoulders shaking with sobs, involuntarily twitching his face as he spoke. Nora, it's all my fault. I'm sorry. Rocky hid his blinded eye with his bangs, devoid of its old brilliance. If I could do it over, I would choose differently. Nora, I made a mistake. Watching their handcuffed wrists, I exhaled deeply. A nurse meant to save lives ended up dying from her own murderous intent. A cop with a bright future became the scorn of all. The idolized forensic genius, left in darkness with one eye. This surely is karma. What goes around, comes around. No one escapes the heavenly way. The end.